Teacher! Teacher! Teacher!
As far as I'm aware, no Hong Kong movies during the 70s were shot using sync sound. There really was no way that they would be able to. The noise, if you've ever been to Hong Kong, you'll know it's a cacophony of sound.
So the easiest thing to do, shoot the movie, have the script, and then let people record the script afterwards, and you match it to what you're seeing on the screen. And that was the basic style of creating a movie in Hong Kong.
I don't think that there was any recording of Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan's voices. There would always be a Mandarin or Cantonese dubber, and they would choose this person because he had a voice very much like Bruce Lee's or Jackie Chan's.
Why do we do him in English? We were doing it for overseas markets, and the principal overseas market was the Philippines, where the lingua franca, the language that everybody could understand, was English.
It was a tiny pool of people who did the English dubbing.
The people who did dubbing were, in the main, people who worked in radio or television. So it tended to be done in the evening, and you'd show up at the studio after you'd left work, exhausted.
They didn't get paid a huge amount for it, and usually it was done at the weekends. It took at least 12 hours for a film. Sometimes 10 was considered, miraculous.
It could take as long as 3 whole days, if there were 3 days available. The process of dubbing begins with somebody writing a script in English based on the Chinese.
So you would have a great screed of Chinese characters and 3 words saying, "Get him, idiot," or something like that. You then would get hold of an audio cassette with the whole film on it. Often it was just recorded in a small viewing theatre, so there would be all sorts of strange noises and echoes.
And then I had to rewrite all those English lines to match the sounds that I could hear on the tape. I couldn't see anything, so I was blind, but I could hear the Chinese. And I counted the number of syllables.
The dubbers, when they came into the studio, would be listening to a guide track, which was the Mandarin guide track.
The first thing is, Tai Ha, let's have a look. In your ear, you listened, and you could hear the Chinese, and you could look at the screen. So you were combining the sound with what you saw on the screen.
But don't forget, this is already a dubbed track, so it may be a hair difference late from what you're actually seeing, and then you're starting a fraction after that.
We relied on the speed of our reactions to be able to make it fit.
When you were dubbing, you were always trying to match the lips. That was the thing. You were trying to match the lips, but at the same time get the story across.
Will you tell me what teacher died of?
It was just very difficult. If you ever listen to Chinese, any of the Chinese dialects being spoken, it sounds very, very different to anybody speaking English.
Oh, I see.
And the mouth movements, there would be 2 or 3 syllables in Mandarin, and we'd have to say, "Get him," and that's like 1 syllable of a flap of the mouth, "Get him."
And then you look at it afterwards, and what you see, and this is the bane of the life of a dubber, when somebody says, "It's full of lip flaps." Lip flaps? What are lip flaps? They're of the lips, but no sound, because you've missed it. That's a disaster, because you've got to do it again, and then again, and then again.
What style of kung fu is that?
I probably worked on somewhere between 150 and maybe 200 films. For me, the voices were mainly the hero. I would usually only do 1 voice because my voice was quite distinctive and was quite young in those days. But many of the people that I worked with were actors or had a variety of voices.
I prided myself on accents. I liked showing off. I had a background in acting. I was world famous for my noodle boy in a Chinese restaurant. Hello, get your noodles here. Noodles? Noodles! Get your noodles here. Hey, yes, sir. Yeah, noodles? Yeah, noodles, sir. The voice suits the part as the Chinese director saw it, and you've got to honor that.
I was being used. I was only carrying out their orders. Have pity on me.
A lot of the actors in these films were of a type, which was fine because a lot of these films repeated the same characters and indeed the same plots over and over again. These films were painted with very broad brushstrokes so that everybody would get the message.
Master, your kung fu is great.
Generally speaking, the ingenuity of the people who did the dubbing was extraordinary, because what we could do with just a few microphones was kind of amazing. The one time we ad-libbed and didn't work to a script was in a big crowd scene where there were people fighting. We would take the microphones and place them at different distances, and people would stand further back from the mic or close to the mic. It was terrific. We called those scenes the Wembley Roar, because Wembley is the biggest, stadium in this country. 90,000 people get in there. And we had 90,000 people with 9 guys. You must be tired of living.
Chinese actors tend to really ham it up. That they were doing it in such a way that it was, I think it was a hangover from Mandarin opera and Cantonese opera, that people were very, very mannered in what they did. So it was a very difficult thing to try to get a less mannered, if you like, language into this very high energy shouting and carrying on that seemed to be going on the screen.
I shall accept punishment for the lives that I took.
Fist of Fury was the toughest piece of dubbing I'd ever done in my entire dubbing career. There was rather a big problem dubbing a Bruce Lee movie. The first problem was the fact that Bruce Lee decided to direct the dub himself, which meant he stood behind you and hit you on the shoulders and said, "More passion!"
And you believed what you were told. He was well. There was nothing wrong.
How can a healthy man die? More anger, more. And my shoulders were beginning to get a bit sore, Anyway, he's not happy. What he did not know was that the words on the script did not fit the lip flaps. It was wrong. And finally he said, "Okay, Miguel, move over. I'll show you how it's done." When it was over, the dubbing manager, the guy in charge of the whole operation, came out of his booth and he said, "Kaye Vaughan, his is better." Now, to his credit, Bruce Lee, he may have been furious, he may have been disappointed. All he did was he just turned away and said, "All right, next loop." He was in charge. He was going to stay in charge. But I have to admit, I was quite pleased. This time, you're reading paper.
Next time, it's gonna be glass.
Bruce Lee didn't realize, but I was also playing the lead villain. And there was I, as the chief villain, playing against Bruce Lee, the chief hero, and acting with myself for the last few minutes of the movie until I got done, finished, killed, or whatever happened to me.
Most of the time, we did provide all the shouts for the combat scenes, but there were 1 or 2 occasions where we were running low on time, that if I found that the punch-ups sounded the same in Mandarin and English, I thought, to hell with it, leave it.
Bruce Lee, the guy never stopped making noises. Half the noises that Bruce Lee made were unique to Bruce Lee. And that's what made it so difficult. Because if you're not used to making a noise, that's what makes your throat sore. Ah! Ah! Hi! My throat was torn with the anguish of doing it. I mean, Bruce Lee had been doing it all his career. He knew how to do it. It was awful.
Why did you kill my teacher? Why?
Of course, I'm thrilled that people still remember Bruce Lee, but that's down to Bruce Lee. That's his credit. It's not mine. I just happened to do his voice in, one big movie, which happened to be the breakthrough movie of his career. And I think that's something he would be proud of. And at one remove, I'm quite proud of it too.
I'm gonna kill you with my own 2 hands.
The only thing that when people ask me about dubbing that comes to mind is the sheer joy that we had and the sheer fun that we had doing these things. I mean, you'd never be rich doing it. That wasn't the point. If you wanted to be rich, you'd go and work in the city somewhere. But we had a tremendous time.
Good afternoon there. I'm from the telephone company.
I think people appreciating the dubbing is really all part of the fun of those films.